Hello, everybody. I'm a little late. I was caught up in the editing of the International Radio Report show. Time is going fast today. Let's do this. Hope everybody is all right. And here we go. It was a little longer. I went to the groceries. It was a little longer. There was actually a power outage at the grocery store, which meant that I couldn't pay with my cards and I had to pay with cash. I didn't have cash. So somebody came around with a portable payment terminal. It was kind of weird. But now I'm back. Okay, so this looks good. And let's put this here. And so let's start SDR. I didn't have time to install version 1.4. There's a new version of SDR Uno, but time is something difficult sometimes. I'll try to install it later today. So, not now. It did tell me there's a new version of SDR. Check this. Something here. So let's start this. There we go. And then there's a beer. Hope everybody's going all right. So I've got my Fin du Monde. Let's open this. Well, this one's tough to open. And of course, my right arm, which is the one that is usually stronger, is a little out of commission because of the... Now my hands are wet. I'm getting old and weak. Oh man, I can't open it. Here we go. When you can't open a beer, something is useful. Let's see if I can... there we go. Not even. Man, this one is hard. I got it out a little bit. You guys are laughing your head off. Oh, man. I've never had one that was so hard. Usually when you unscrew it a little bit, it actually works. Man. Oh, God. Wouldn't that be better? Some good beer. Yeah, I hope. Can't open it. Man. This is going to become a YouTube meme. I'm going to show a Canadian guy that's not able to open a beer. And here we go. There we go. Oh, man. That's going to show up somewhere as the bloopers of the live show. Oh, man. Because my hand that I hit that guy with is still not capable of really putting a lot of force. Oh, man. Because with my right hand, it would have been okay. But my left hand is not very strong compared to my right hand. And that one was kind of hard to... It's nothing special. It's my usual end of the world beer. So, cheers. Tastes better because I had to work hard for it. Yes. Oh, man. Oh, God. It's just some of those funny moments that happen. So, hey, everybody, welcome aboard. This is the Try to Open a Beer show, live in front of an audience, being red like a tomato and like my shirt, and I look like a puny man that doesn't have any strength. So nice to have all of you here. This is the Shortwave show. We are live twice a week with our usual program where we talk about radio and where we listen to the radio and just have a lot of fun sharing our knowledge and just sharing all together in the wonderful world of shortwave radio in general, and medium wave, long wave. Sometimes we go into the higher frequencies. So I hope that you enjoy this show. We are twice a week live, except that in this month of August, I take 1 week off. Next week, I will be off all week. So don't search for me. I'll take a week off again and come back. And we are live on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, 0 hours UTC. Somebody told me the other day, oh, you shouldn't say the Eastern time and stuff. Well, it is better because there's still part of the audience that is kind of struggling as to what UTC time is in their time zones. So it kind of helps a little bit by mentioning both. And Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern, that's 1 p.m. Pacific. That's 20 hours UTC. And we try to open beer. Nothing like opening a beer with a vice grip. That's a good one. Oh, God. So we have a beautiful chat room with wonderful people that are in here that just want to have fun, share with their radio knowledge with everybody. We also have a Facebook group, which is the same name as the channel here, official SWL channel. More than 1,100 members right now. And it's a great place to continue to party, continue having fun, and just share your radio knowledge, share your radios, what you're listening to, and have fun with others on the channel. So, Dijon, nice to have you here from Bavaria, Germany. Sheldon Harvey, nice to have you on board from Greenfield Park, Quebec. Just to the southeast of Montreal, basically. And what is that, Matthew Kelleher? Nice to have you here, Matt, or MDK2, from Colorado. Kamegzi 1976, nice to have you here. iBrawler from Arkansas. RFDXer from Southeast Colorado. Simon Templar, nice to have you here, my friend. Calvin, nice to have you on board. Joe Rutman, nice to have you here. Joe from Illinois. Rufus Newt from the beautiful Laurentian Valley, Ontario. RFDXer, nice to have you here. Thank God it's Friday. Calvin, how was Perry Island? No, it was fun. I have a couple of videos I haven't had time to put online. I'll put them later today. I'll post them on the Shortwave channel. Propagation wasn't that fantastic. The signals are not super strong, and I didn't have the fun I wanted to have with the radios. So after about an hour and a half of trying to find something, and there was really nothing that exciting, and what was interesting and I wanted to listen to was kind of too weak to really be listenable, I went off for a walk for about an hour and a half, exploring the new areas of that park, and then came back and reinstalled myself to see what I could hear. Propagation was much better after, but the overall afternoon was not all that it could be or what I wanted it to be, actually. But going there is always a lot of fun. It's nature. It's, relax. It's you're outside the regular world, and there's the COVID world, and there it's like COVID doesn't exist for the few hours that you spend there before you come back into reality. Mark Cope, nice to have you here from Dallas, Texas, WA5153 SWL. David KJ4CMY from Central Georgia. Mark Cancelada, nice to have you here. Bobby Burgess from Morgan City, Louisiana. Others out of Crafter's Kitchen, waiting for a Sony ICF 6700, but nothing yet. Hope it does arrive. Nice to have you here from Massachusetts. Tycon Light Moon, nice to have you here from Southern California. Brian Penny, nice to have you here from Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Mayhem Harvey, nice to have you here. Jeff N9OWP, new guy, welcome aboard. Hope you enjoyed the show today. Graham, nice to have you here from Milton, Ontario. Dead Guy, nice to have you here. Eric Cottrell, nice to have you on board. Yeah, I know 1.4. He actually just asked me, but I said no for now because I don't want to take that time to install. I'll do it a little later. Jeff Williams, nice to have you here. Jeff from Southwest Cornwall. Joe Tyson, nice to have you on board from North Carolina. Wolfgang, nice to have you on board from Austria. Calvin says, I want no beer tonight. Oh, man. Arjun Wiesman, nice to have you here, Arjun. Nice to have you on board. I see vodka and cranberry juice coming. Yeah, that could have been the alternative, actually. Cyberflyer 1, nice to have you here from Central England. Michael Woods from Melbourne, Australia. Welcome aboard, my friend. On Saturday morning, early Saturday morning. Eric Cottrell, the advantage, one advantage of SDR 1.4, get frequency annotations on the Spectrum display using the friend plugin I created. Oh, that's going to be interesting to check out. Matt, 96.1 Fahrenheit, 35 Celsius. Man, that is hot. Here we're at the, I don't know, lower 80s, something like, it's 26 Celsius right now. And Briar Smoke, nice to have you here. Alan Dawson, nice to have you on board. I spy as the Aruno just shut mine out. She brought a radio home from work by mistake and was just finding the frequency. Matambale, nice to have you here. Rob Fiducia, what's a church key? I don't know that. I probably know what it is, but I don't know the. I don't know that English. That English side of what a church key is. Rob, nice to have you on board from Phoenix, Arizona. Moonfest Madness, nice to have you here. Bob, nice to have you on board. What do we have? Yeah. What else do we have? The end of the world beers are to open, absolutely. Oh man. Simon Templar is in Portland, Oregon. Let's have you here. And what else do we have? Yeah, that one has a cork. It's like a it's like a champagne bottle. So what else do we have? Let me go down here. That says lots of Belgian style ales come corked. I've never learned why they do that. I think it's just for the fun of it. They try to pass them as high class beer or something. Trond, nice to have you on board from Norway. And what else do we have? That guy says bands are dead this afternoon for me so far. David says, by the time you open that beer, it will be the end of the world. Penny Charbonnier, nice to have you on board from the Netherlands. Calvin says you should do a series on that, how to open different types of beers for the older gentlemen. Oh, man. That's where, I had a couple of occasions this week where I totally noticed that because my hand is still not back to full strength like it was, it's much better. It actually gives you a hard time doing certain tasks. That's what you get for hitting a guy real hard in the face, I guess. Moonfest Madness feels dirty playing the gigahertz bands. XZ76. Joel was about to break out explosive for the beer bottle. I've got some dynamite. Actually, I've got some really big model rocket motors that my nephew got. They are F. They are huge. Pamela, nice to have you here. Matt says bands have been weak today compared to yesterday, but I have Radio Nacional Amazon on 11780, which isn't too bad this time of day. Should get stronger as the day goes on. But there is one thing, though. The day yesterday was amazing, but last night Propagation was amazing, and Radio New Zealand was real strong. But it's interesting because there's a shift in Propagation, and it's obvious because 13840 starts fading out around midnight. So I get a really strong signal around 0300 UT. But as we cross the 0400 UT for the last hour on that frequency, I'm starting to lose it now. Something that, it stayed strong throughout June and July. But now as we move on to the equinox, after 0400, it starts fading out. So there's really a change in propagation. Wolfgang, do you also follow hockey? I'm an old fan of the Habs. They are leading today in the second period. I'm not a big fan of hockey. I was a fan of baseball, but I'm not a big fan of hockey, honestly. I'm one of those weirdos of Montreal that doesn't like hockey much. I don't hate it, but and I've been to a couple of games, but it's not my sport. Europe, nice to have you here. What radio you recommend to start on shortwave? If you can get your hands on an XH Data D808, that's a pretty good model to start with. Texan PL660, pretty good model to start with. You could check that. Lee Burgett, nice to have you here, Lee. Says fair listening conditions in the UK this week. We're slowly coming from lockdown at various frequencies, including the Volmit. Yeah, I saw your video. William Conlon, nice to have you on board. Rick Satter, nice to have you here from Milwaukee. Bonjour et bienvenue, PLF Radio. Toujours un plaisir de t'avoir parmi nous. De la France. So Michael Woods in Melbourne, Australia. Every time I hear Melbourne, it always brings me Radio Australia. Jerry DX, nice to have you here. Levi Nathan, nice to have you on board from Israel. Ekadarius, nice to have you on board. Bob is from a very warm Northeast Ohio. SoCalf1, when I lived in Calgary, had Red Rock Brewery beer. Can't get it in the States. Pity, it was really good. That'd be something I'd have to check if they have at the liquor store. Alexis, nice to have you here from the central UK. Edevalds, nice to have you here from Latvia. Doing very well here, my friend. Pamela found a fake number station. I wouldn't be surprised that some pirates will broadcast number station stuff from the past. Andy Colley, nice to have you on board. What else do we have? Dijon in Germany. Michael Absher is a new subscriber. KA6MAP, nice to have you here, my friend. Stéphane Tozied, nice to have you on board. Et bienvenue de la France, Stéphane. Peter Robinson, nice to have you here. Got his Radibau 108 on tonight. Always listen to you when I can, Cathy. Nice to have you on board, Peter Robinson from the UK. What else do we have? Trond is LA1008 SWL. Jeff Barrett, nice to have you here from Cincinnati. Cool AM Radio, Andre, nice to have you on board, my friend. Yeah, 1.4 SDR Uno is now officially at 1.4. Oh, a bottle opener is called a church key. I didn't know that. I know the English slang for it. A church key. A bottle opener. I'm trying to. Is there a story behind why it's called a church key? Out of curiosity. I'm trying to visualize why it would be called a church key. Or maybe it was a specific type of bottle opener that was called a church key. Anyone receiving 9670 AM? The channel 292. Are they on right now? I should try it. 9670. I've got nothing on 9670 here at the moment for now. But that's a new frequency to check out, that's for sure. What else do we have? Bailey's Tree, nice to have you here from California, KN6CWT. Thank you very much. It's fun to have everybody on board. Yeah, Alan Wiener buying WHRI. I wonder if it's gonna change something on WHRI side of things. I mean, WBCQ has a lot of religious programming. WHRI is mostly religious programming, except for a couple of relays. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what he does with that. Calvin, you can always do maybe like a bottle of wine with a shoe if you don't have a corkscrew. So yeah. Yeah, there's going to be a A lot of beer everywhere if I do that. What else do we have? I wouldn't recommend a Reticus V115. It's a bad start to the hobby. KX2U. What's the opinion of? Well, the opinion of pretty much everybody of the ICOM IC 7300 is that for the price, it's probably one of the best deals out there for a transceiver. It seems to be very, very good. Yeah, Jerry DX, I got attacked by 3 guys, 2 months ago, a month and a half ago. They tried to steal my phone and my wallet. And I hit one back real good, and they ran away without the wallet and the phone. So, you know. Eric Cottrell. Yes, Montreal Expos. Absolutely. I missed that. Tron, can you talk about listening to amateur radio satellites and frequencies for that? I have been trying without any luck. We'll talk a little bit about it, yeah. PLF Radio reviewed the Texan 990. Yeah, I saw the blog post, PLF Radio. It's going to be interesting when it is going to be the official released production version, because they're still working out the bugs. But I did read that review. Stefan, what do you mean by... You mean having schedules of what's on the air? Europe, my opinion of the Texan R9012, it's for the price, it's surprising. For the price, it will get some shortwave broadcasts. It's better than the V115 because at least it doesn't overload on FM or doesn't have all the weird internal noise problems that the V115 has. If I had to tell somebody which one to buy for such a low price radio, Texan R9012 would be the winner. Yes, I've seen some YouTube stuff of the Texan 330, 990, and an H501. And like I said, they're still not in production, so these are still the pre-production units that came out here and there. So Wolfgang says, what do you guys think about listening to shortwave via web SDR like Kiwi SDR? I think it is a good alternative when the bands are dead in my region. It's almost like an expedition to another continent. There's a lot of positive stuff listening to Kiwi SDRs and SDR onlines, honestly. I do it regularly. What I like mostly is to try and see what propagation looks like in different parts of the world, and try also to get some of the transmissions that I might not get here, but that I will get from using a Kiwi SDR somewhere else. Radioactive from Central Oregon, and his amateur call sign is W7WXV. But it is a great alternative, honestly. What else do we have? Let me just go down here. Yeah, the Texan R9012 is a nice, really cheap radio. It's sensitive enough to get some shortwave broadcasts. So you could start out with that. It's not expensive. Miguel Delmage, nice to have you on board. Yes, a church key, bottle opener. Do the Canadian thing. Use your feet. Yeah, but the problem is a cork. I'm going to chew on it. I'm going to make like a beaver. That's the kind of Canadian thing. I'll do like a beaver on the cork. Oh, man. What else do we have? Old Radio Man from Northeast Tennessee. When you decoded Navtex from South America, Argentina, what frequency are you hearing it on? So the transmitter is on 8416.5, if I'm not mistaken. And I tune 8415 upper sideband. Something like that. I believe it's 84. Let me just check the frequency. Around 03 at night, it comes in almost all the time. So let me just check the frequency here. So Argentina's Navtex is. Let me just check it out. Yeah, L2C in Buenos Aires. So I hear the around 03 UT. It says 03 to 0310 here, but it's much longer than that. It's usually like 03 to 0330 at least. So Buenos Aires radio Navtex is 8416.5. That's the center frequency. But put yourself at 8415 upper sideband. And remember, if the signal is a little weak, it's not, Navtex is not always decoding well, but 03. What else do we have? Applause. Nice to have you here, N5UWY. Payne says it's called a church key because it looks like a key that opens the church doors. Okay. Shows you guys that I've been to church a lot. I have no idea. Wolfgang says having an English bitter. That's not bad, actually. Oh, I want to check that out. So Wikipedia church key. And okay, yeah, I get the resemblance now. Okay. Yeah, interesting. I just learned something. I didn't know about that English language term that it's a church key. There's a lot of English slang and English stuff that I don't know what it actually, I never heard. So what else do we have? Hey, Agong Subandono. Nice to have you here from Indonesia. YJ3DAP. Nice to have you on board, my friend. Tristan, nice to have you here. Wolfgang, but nevertheless, prefer to listen to traditional receivers. Since 10 days, I have a Summer Camp FRG7, which I guess is a Jesus has FRG7. Osakama, nice to have you on board. I'm 5'9", which I don't know what it is in meters. Don't ask me in meters or centimeters. I have no idea. And I'm a pretty, I'm a big enough guy that most guys would probably not take a chance. I'm not a big guy, but I'm not a small guy either. Plus says there are several 2-meter satellite downlinks that if you put them in your scanner, you will eventually hear voices when one passes over. Lee Burkett says I had a strong signal this week on Obart's International 11580. Cool. Does that, on that frequency, that come from WRMI? I don't even know if WRMI uses a frequency in 25 meters again. Matambali, strong carrier 11780. And chances are it probably is Amazon. Let me check it out here. What I got here on 11780. And modulation is very low on 11780 tonight. But that definitely, right, there's music right now that definitely is Radio Nacional Amazon. Farney Jr., nice to have you here. What else do we have? Cool AM says, running special offshore radio remembrance programs commemorating August 14, 1967. Cool. Payne says, Montreal is tough. I got arrested there for violence years ago. Yeah, well, it's a pretty safe city in general. But, and 50 years of, I've had my share of coming home from bars at 3 or 4 a.m. Never had anything happen, really. It's just being at the wrong place at the wrong time. And when I hit the guy back, and I started yelling like crazy, they kind of ran away. I heard one of the guys says, no, this ain't going to be easy. Forget it. I will just do this. Sorry, guys, but it happened too many times. That William Conlon guy with his stupid comments of how to get into the chat room. I just can't tonight. Enough stupidity. Stefan says, no, I mean a map like Google Map with the places of transmitter to know where the physical transmitter is. You know what? Go to this website, Stefan. I'll post the website here. It's a short-wave.info. This website, when you actually look at enter a frequency, for example, that you're listening to, will actually give you the so here's the link. It will actually give you the location of the transmitter on the map. So that's one website that you can do that. If you have an Android phone, you can also install a app called Skywave Schedules. Skywave Schedules is an app that will also give you the location on a map of a transmitter. So if you put a frequency, for example, and you're looking at what's on the air now on a certain frequency, once you click, you'll have the information of what it is, and you have, for example, I just put 11780 Brazil, and it gives you the location of the transmitter, and it gives you also often the general direction where the signal is being sent to. So Skywave Schedule on Android tablet or phone, and go to the website I just given, Stefan. What else do we have? Johnny the Xer, nice to have you here. W3JMC from Philadelphia. Mark Cancellara says, I love using web SDRs today. For instance, I was listening to SDR in Tokyo, one in Brazil. Yeah, it's fun to listen to SDRs from different parts of the world, honestly. Alberto Simons Casanova, nice to have you on board. And the very best radio for me is a Texan PL660, best in its size. It is a nice radio, for sure. Payne's got an IPA, 9%. Well, same percentage here, it's 9% also. How's Paul the cat? He's pretty good. He's sleeping in the living room chair right now. Take care, SoCal 73. Wolfgang says yes. It's a Yesu. $5.9 is equal to, I don't know. Let me just do the height conversion. So rapid tables, I like that. So 5 feet 9 inches is 1.7526 meters. So it is 175 centimeters high. Absolutely. So I'll try to remember that for next time when people ask me how tall I am. 175 centimeters. Plus says 11780. Music Audible EM15. What is Ali Crafter's Kitchen? Wondering if the WBCQ purchase of WHRI is signal a start of consolidation, shrinkage of private religious stations. You know, I mean, it costs a lot of money to run a shortwave broadcast. The power is used, and the electricity bill must be crazy. And I sometimes wonder how they can actually continue broadcasting. I look at WTWW. I mean, it's kind of cool to have, like that music show all evening. But that is broadcasting music at a cost that is probably fairly high. And I sometimes wonder how they can actually afford to always continue doing that. I understand if with religious broadcasting, for example, you'll have the religious broadcasters pay for their airtime, but I wonder sometimes how they can actually pay the bills and everything. And I think, there's a lot of stations that came and went over time with in the United States that were private broadcasters. And so with a declining shortwave audience, I think you got also to think that that declining shortwave audience is means a lot of broadcasters and a lot of the people behind the programming might think, well, is it still necessary and is it still worth to broadcast on shortwave, especially for a private broadcaster that it costs money to do so. Jim McMullen, nice to have you here from the Hurley Riverside Park by Wartime OSS Station Victor. Okay, welcome aboard. Plus, pro tip, don't yell at people through the PA on your buddy's CB. Tron is receiving 11780 with a fair signal. Yeah, Paul is fine. Paul is really great, and he's sleeping. Cool, Stefan. Have fun. You're gonna see these are really Skywave schedule is nice, and plus the website we give you here is really nice for that too. It is fun to have a visual of where a transmitter is, because sometimes one of the things I often, I always had a big world map for shortwave listening because it was always kind of cool to think, oh wow, that station I'm listening, the signal comes from there, and it kind of gives you a visual of actually how far you're actually listening to something. Tell somebody new else. Nice to have you here from Brazil. Actually, not necessarily plus, because a lot of broadcasters don't have any feed online, first of all. And second of all, it's not the same thing. You want to know, I like to hear and see how propagation is of a radio signal from a remote SDR. It's not the same thing. You're still listening to a radio. It's just that the radio is feeding its audio online. That's it. When you listen to a QASDR, you don't want to listen to the broadcaster's site. And like I said, a lot of the broadcasters don't have a link of whatever is playing right now on their website also. Matt says the fact that WBCQ, who has too poor to fix their transmitter after a fire a few years back, can now close $1 million purchase makes me think the worst last chance is behind it. Sorry, guys. I got this little tickling just here. Man, sorry. Okay. I wouldn't be surprised. I can't, without World's Last Chance, I can't think of anything else that could be, have Alan Wiener dish out 1.25 million for WHRI. And the other thing is, well, $1.25 million is a lot of money for a shortwave broadcaster. I don't know. It's possible. It's totally possible. That World's Last Chance. And, you got to think about all of this. I was thinking one night about World's Last Chance and all of that, and flat earthers and stuff, programming. It's kind of weird, even thinking about it. Even World's Last Chance, what's behind that organization? What exactly is that? There's got to be more than just what we see. I mean, come on, and dish out that amount of money for broadcasting on shortwave. I don't know. It's so funny, it's like a bunch of flat earthers that want to have shortwave broadcasting. Isn't that kind of the opposite? You want to broadcast on shortwave. Well, if it's Earth is flat, you can broadcast on FM with a really high tower, line of sight, and enough power is going to go through. Kevin Wood, nice to have you here from Nova Scotia. What else do we have? Mark Cancelada, I would love to take a good radio to Tokyo or Brazil much more. Oh, I think everybody would like to do that. That's for sure. That's for sure. Because it'd be fun. I like bringing a radio, the having no limit of money, the expedition around the world. Let me check it out, Cool AM. I've never had it, but I think I've seen it at the local liquor store. Have you had it, Andre, that Belgian beer? Jeff King, nice to have you here from Jacksonville, Florida. Yep, like Matt says, in a remote SDR, you can see what is being received in an area, and I'm not limited to a single choice of a web stream. Seriously, go play around the U20 SDR. Sometimes you'll see. Absolutely, I totally agree. A remote SDR is really, really a lot of fun. And it's fun because you see these signals and you want to try to identify them. A couple of months back in the utility column, I did a column on the Russian channel markers that send these single letter CWs, Morse code. And that's an example You know, Russia does not stream the buzzer or the single letter Morse code, uh, you know, channel markers. Um, um, and it's fun because you know to test out, because when I did the column, one of the things I wanted to make sure is that if I put on frequencies in there, that there's actually something on it. You know, I used a bunch of European SDRs and tuned around, and definitely could hear a lot of those channel markers, you know, beeping along with the single letters. So you know, there's a lot of usage of remote SDRs and propagation, and the fact that it's like an SDR at home. It has the waterfall. You can actually look at the band, see what's there. You might see a signal, say, "Oh, what's that?" You know, just the fact that also remember that shortwave, and there's a lot of stuff on shortwave. I mean, there's not just international broadcasters. There's utilities. There's tons of signals scattered all around. You need a radio to do that, and a lot of those signals are limited to specific ranges around the world. You know, those Russian channel markers are not very powerful, and a lot of them are in frequencies that never make it up to North America. I've heard some CW channel markers here in North America a few times. I've heard one a few weeks ago while I was tuning. I saw what looked like a Morse code signal in the waterfall, and I think it was in the 6 megahertz range around there. I had one also in the like just below 11 megahertz, 10.900 something. And so some of them make it, but a lot of them don't. So there's so much to listen to. And like I said, I don't think more than half of whatever broadcaster is out there is actually streaming whatever they're playing on the internet. This is what I often say. People that think that the internet is where you can hear the streaming of all of that. No, the majority of broadcasters don't have an internet stream. If they do, they might have on-demand programs, but not necessarily the stream live while it's happening. And the majority don't have any of that. You know, once again, I always say it. People think that the internet is killing shortwave. Shortwave is killing itself in different ways. Plus, the noise levels and everything is killing shortwave. The internet has pretty much nothing to do with shortwave going away. It is really a mix of all sorts of things. You know, in the 70s and 80s, countries needed to have a voice. There was that big Cold War thing, and Cold War was a big driver of everything that was war. You know, from the Second World War to the Cold War that followed, all of that, everything that's called war, drives shortwave. And when the Cold War ended, you know, the number of stations that were on shortwave was already declining. When I started in the 80s, there was already a slow decline of shortwave. Stations were slowly getting out of it. There was no internet to replace it. In the 90s, the internet was still not there to replace anything, except at the end of the 90s when streaming audio was starting, barely. And a lot of people were on 56K modems, and you know, it was all choppy and kind of weird. And a lot of stations disappeared. Not the internet. It was a lot. It had a lot to do with the Cold War is over. Let's rethink. Do we really need this? Do we really need to spend money doing this? And it continued. But the internet actually has very little to do with any station leaving shortwave. And if it would have been the case, it's very simple. A lot of broadcasters like Radio Netherlands would have continued streaming multilingual programs on the internet, because they would have said, oh, we're moving on the internet. That's the place to be. It's not. It's not. And I'll be very fair. Honestly, except for some very specific programming, maybe, Nobody listens to radio on shortwave, on the internet, sorry. Almost nobody listens to radio on the internet. It's not the place. And the majority of what you hear from other countries, because people will say, yeah, but you can hear the Netherlands. Yeah, but I don't understand Dutch. And pretty much everything is in Dutch. Oh, but you can listen to Norway on the internet. Oh, yeah. I don't understand Norwegian. And everything's Norwegian. It's not the same thing at all. You cannot, nobody can say that the internet is replacing shortwave. It is not at all in any way. And I say it again, I think it's the other way around. The internet is helping shortwave broadcasters, is helping the hobby, for those that are in the hobby, more than ever. Because finally, in real time or almost, we can see when something is on the air. We can immediately know, oh, on that frequency, that is what I'm listening to. We can immediately know when a pirate's on. We can immediately know tons of information. You have that guy from Canada. I'm apparently some kind of weirdo that does live shows for hours at a time talking about it. You know, I mean, there must be something there. So, you know, the internet is not replacing shortwave. Shortwave is dying for multiple reasons, budget reasons, and lack of listeners. You know, I sometimes wonder, some stations, how many letters they actually do receive from listeners around the world, or emails. I mean, there was a time when there was so much hobbyists and so many listeners that, yeah, there was a lot of letters coming in. But I don't think that, you know, broadcasters are getting that many letters today. That's also driving them into what they are going to decide. You know, if they don't get letters or emails from their listeners, they're going to start to think, well, is there somebody out there listening? And it's awfully hard to get some response. Just to give you guys an idea, it happens so many times in the International Radio Report show. We give the email where you can contact. I remember a couple of times trying to, like, you know, mention on the show, hey, you know, we don't know who's out there listening. We know, you know, people are listening, but we don't know who exactly is listening and how many people are actually listening to that show. Why don't you drop us a line? And you know what? We get zero response. Not because there's no one out there. It's simply because the actual writing to a station to let them know that you're listening is something done by a small percentage of listeners. And I don't remember what was the statistic, but I remember, I think it was the BBC in the late 80s, early 90s that had like a big survey of shortwave listeners. And I remember they had a statistic that for one person that actually wrote in, there was that number of listeners in reality. They could extrapolate the statistics and understand, okay, so that means we have that million of listeners on shortwave because of this statistic that we actually know that, you know, only one out of, I don't know, 50 people actually write into a station, and it's probably even more than that. I mean, for as far as I can think, and even today is even worse, because today there's less people writing, less people listening. How many times have you heard the same names in mailbag shows over and over and over again? And it still happens. I still hear a lot of names of people that are always the same in the mailbag shows. Always the same people are writing in all the time. And I tell you, it's a complex world out there to deal with all of that and know how many people are actually listening into a broadcast. we don't have the real numbers, and if nobody writes, well, is there somebody out there, you know? Kevin J. Napalo, nice to have you here. Nick Mayakovsky, nice to have you on board. Pablo Martin, ¿cómo está mi amigo? What else do we have? Let me go down. Yeah, Skywave Schedule is an awesome app. Everybody that has an Android tablet or phone should have that. What else do we have? Matt says, yeah, I think there's more than meets the eye with them. Flat Earthers sending a signal around the world. Yep. How would we say it? They're using shortwave in a square world. How would we say it? So it's not around the world, then it is on the world. I don't know. Javen Robert Milligan says, I think there's so much religions broadcast covering the bands on shortwave, especially Brother Stare. It's on almost every frequent WRMI frequency in the evening. Oh, there is. There is a lot. Absolutely. Matambali says, I just think of religious broadcasters as handy propagation beacons with complete randomized audio. So what else do we have? Tron, can I be moderator in the official shortwave channel group? Just asking since... oh, you mean here? Oh, yeah, for sure. No problem, Tron. And here you go. You're moderator, Tron. Welcome aboard. Mark Cancelara says, as also today I was checking the medium wave frequencies in Kiwi SDRs in Tokyo, in Brazil. Yeah. I like to go in Europe and tune medium wave and hear all of these different language and stations and hear the different BBC medium wave outlets and so on. It's really, really cool. Really, really cool. Joseph Higginbon, nice to have you here from the San Francisco Bay Area, California. Joshua, nice to have you here, W4GOG. Stephen Wood, nice to have you here from Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Nothing happening on calling CQ on 20 meters, Joshua? Yesterday, I heard a K7, I think it was a K7 amateur station called, he called CQ for, the guy was patient. He was calling CQ for Europe. And I tell you guys, I left the radio on 20 meters because there was nothing else anyways, and I was curious as to see if there would be some replies. He called every, 30 to 45 seconds with that break to listen to see if anybody's out there for half an hour and had no replies. And I thought the guy was so patient. It was like, well, you did it for half an hour. You should have had a reply or something. He got one that was too weak for him to actually. And it's weird because he didn't get any replies. I move up 20 kilohertz. I don't know. He was like on, 14,175. I moved up to 14,195, and there's this guy with a huge signal from the UK, a G0 station. And I'm like, well, it's open to Europe. And, it comes down to a lot of times, and I've said it in the past, it comes down sometimes to, we got to be careful when we say, oh, propagation wasn't good. Very often is, yeah, but nobody was there. And a good example is amateur radio. Because, just check out, yesterday I had a couple of hams on 17 meters, which is a band I like. It often has surprises. The 17 meters is 100 kilohertz wide. It's from 18068 to 18168. Throughout my listening yesterday, I went there a few times, and basically, what happened is I had a few hams, but there's not a lot of activity. Sometimes I would tune around and there was nothing, and you start thinking, oh, maybe propagation's bad. No, it was good enough, because 18100, that FT8 frequency, it had tons of signals overlapping each other. It's like, no, there's activity here. 15 meters. I went up to 15 meters, 21,000 to 21,450. I had on that range 0 single sideband contacts. But it was interesting. 21074 was full of FT8. So 15 meters was open because there were tons of signals there, and some of them were strong. I think there's a lot of that happening. Not necessarily the conditions are bad. Nobody's there. You wonder why you get your hand license if you're not using it. Joe Tyson says, listening to radio via streaming is soul-sucking. There are times when I do listen to streaming for some stuff. I will ask my Google Assistant to play the BBC NewsHour podcast, stuff like that. Not because I don't want to listen to it on shortwave, because I just can't listen to it on shortwave. I never have a clear frequency enough to listen to it most of the time. So you end up doing what? Streaming it, not because you want to, because you're not getting it on the radio. Vaults, do you know if shortwave, Radio Free Europe, Voice of America had any impact during recent internet shutdown in Belarus? I suspect that not much, as not a lot of receivers remain in use. Knowledge is lost. That's something that is an interesting observation. Knowledge is lost. Already when shortwave was popular, it was not everybody that knew that it existed. Even in early 80s, 1982, 83, as a high school kid, me and one of my friends knew shortwave. But obviously pretty much no one of my age knew what it was. We're in 1982. I mean, it's not like in the 60s or 70s maybe, but it's still not like in 2020. And that's a good question. Knowledge lost is a good one, because I do think Radio Free Europe and Voice of America, for example, might have, or even the BBC, might have a strong impact on events when they are received in a country. And with what's happening over there, and the country is a very, very big turmoil there in Belarus. How many people are actually knowledgeable of you can tune into shortwave broadcasts? And it comes to what we say often when I talk. I don't know how many times people told me, you're just, when you say that the internet could be shut down and it's never going to happen. No, we never think that. Never think that in our what is a relatively peaceful continent, and in terms of wars and things, that it can happen. You never know. Just look at what a little virus, an invisible virus to the eyes, is creating as a huge problem of all sorts of things. And 6 months ago, last Christmas, who was talking about that virus? Maybe had a couple of reports of something in China. Did you ever think that that's something in China was going to impact your life like it is right now? I don't think nobody was thinking that. Yeah, everybody was like, "Yeah, it's gonna, it's gonna be like the past things. There's gonna be a little bit of stuff happening, but in general, everything's gonna be okay." And then, boom, you know, millions of people lose their jobs, and everything is stopped, and it's like, whoa, suddenly something happening, and something that happened a very short period of time too, and something that a year ago, we were at the we were coming at the Saturday of the Canadian International DX Club barbecue and in Greenfield Park with usual life. So something can happen, but you're right. Who actually knows that shortwave's around and still there? It also joins another thing that I see so often here as a comment. Somebody that comes back into the hobby, or I see it also on the shortwave channel. I post a video of BBC shortwave, and I'll have somebody post, weren't they gone from shortwave? No, the BBC is still one of the biggest shortwave broadcasters around the world. They've stopped broadcasting to North America, but they still have a huge presence. And so many times people are like, oh, I miss Voice of America and the BBC when they were on shortwave. They're not gone. They're still there. You still can listen to them. It's just that from the point of view of certain areas like North America, they're not as easy to listen to because they don't have target areas that are either North America, or in the case of Voice of America, what made it good here was the Caribbean and South American services. So you're right. There's knowledge lost, and I don't know how many people out there do have the knowledge and are capable of listening to the outside voices. It's very difficult to assess. One of the things for sure is that it must have an impact, because in many, many places when something happens, both Voice of America, both BBC, and sometimes other broadcasters will increase their broadcasts on shortwave to that target area. And if they take the time, the resource, and the money to do so, it's because they know there is an impact. But what is the impact is very difficult to assess. It's very difficult to know how many people in Belarus has a shortwave radio lying around, and how many of those have the knowledge of knowing, well, that thing with this SW on the band, we can listen to what's happening in our own country by outside radio stations from other countries. Joshua misses old shortwave over the air. Internet sucks. I don't use internet much. Wolfgang, I use both shortwave radio and internet radio. Listen to a lot of via satellite also. Ecodarius, there's plenty of broadcasters, just like there are plenty of cats out there. Wolfgang says internet radio gives me the chance to listen to BBC World Service whenever I want, something that is not possible on shortwave any longer. That's for sure. It's more difficult. So Tron, Norwegian language is difficult to learn. That's why I'm not going to learn it. Wolfgang says, I remember when I could listen to BBC World Service at various frequencies here in Europe. There's still some nice openings of the BBC in Europe with some of the frequencies they use, mainly for Africa. But it is not like, it was in the past, that's for sure. I mean, here, BBC World Service, yesterday, 11810 came in okay. 15400 was very weak. The French service, I had a hard time yesterday at Berry Island. So forget it. The average listener is not hearing the BBC in North America. It's not like in the time when they had that evening frequency on 5975. And man, that frequency was so strong. 11880. Yeah, that's AWR on 11880. Crooked Ninja, Internet Shortwave needs something like Google Translate. Well, on internet, that's mostly what I did. Most of the time, when I have an internet radio, a Sanjian WFR20 that has an amazing um, sound quality. I use it 90% of the time to listen to music when I use it. Radio Korea, good morning from South Korea. Nice to have you on board. Yeah, the mobile side of it for internet is kind of nice also, listening through your phone or stuff like that. Nick Amendote, nice to have you here from Romania. Oh yeah, shortwave is different. Lee Brickett, you're quite right, Jill. I'm happy to say, though I've introduced many people to the hobby via my Facebook site, shortwave has only limited listeners in the UK. Yeah. I mean, there's an audience. I mean, we reach people. There's 155 people watching right now. I get 1,000 views in 24 hours on the live show typically. There's people out there that like that. But, if we'd go around Montreal and ask people, what shortwave is all about. I mean, yesterday, you guys should have seen that. There was a table with 4 women talking in Arabic, and they spent the afternoon there. You should have seen their faces when I hung up a wire in a tree to clip to my radio's antenna. One of them couldn't stop watching. They were really wondering, what the hell is that guy doing with that wire? And I mean, people would pass by and just like, what's that? Only one old man. There was an old man with a cane, and there was nowhere to sit. So he crossed half of the park, and he was tired. And when he came in front of the picnic table, he asked me if I'd mind if he sit there for 10 minutes because he was real tired, and which was fine. And he immediately looked at my radio and he said, "Oh, you put an antenna for your radio in the tree." But the guy was, I don't know, 75 or something. He lived in an era where he probably have seen it, or I've even done radio maybe. Cricket Ninja still trying for aliens. Well, go on 21 megahertz and try to listen to the snap, crackle, and pop of Jupiter. That gets you closer to the aliens. Ancillary, nice to have you here. Dr. Sisop, nice to have you here. 11 meters noisy today here. Well, I'll say what I always say every time people complain of Brother Stare. You don't have to listen to him. The radio has buttons and knobs so that you can tune other programs. And I always say the same thing. I always say, if Brother Stare, like it or not, is what's keeping WRMI alive, to keep my relays of Radio Prague and Radio Slovakia and all of that, I'd rather live with that than have Brother Stare gone, WRMI suddenly having to cut back in budgets because it doesn't have enough money to continue. or maybe even disappear, you know? Joshua, BBC on 12095. Let me check it out here. 12095. Yeah, it's there. It's not very strong, though. 11810 is a little better. 11810 is a little better. K6YYL, nice to have you here, Kimberly in California. Ulysses Chialva, nice to have you here with a cold beer at hand. Nice to have you on board from Cordoba, Argentina. 73. Cheers, my friend. What else do we have? Lecter Sysat 9395 dead. No jamming, but no WRMI yet. Matt says 14175 is where extra and advanced class hams only have privileges. He might have had more catches if he was above 225. Yeah, I know he was below. He was like 175, 180, somewhere there. He was not a very high in frequency. So, yeah, maybe that could have been a better, you had a better chance. Eddie Essex, nice to have you on board. Wonder with COVID and social distancing, have any of these flat earthers been pushed to the edge? Oh, man. You know, with cats all around, everything would have been pushed to the edge. Ingmar Klenhart, nice to have you on board. There are still a few shortwave radio programs that I have a loyal audience and even hold audience meetings, fortunately. So, yeah, but, you know, it's fun to see here there's new young shortwave listeners, and that's kind of cool because it adds to the overall knowledge of our younger generation, and it keeps the hobby alive. It keeps the idea of shortwave alive. It's very interesting. There's so many things out there. You know, we were talking, I remember talking with, I mentioned here a few times, but I was talking with Sheldon a couple of months back before the recording the International Radio Report show. And one of the things that I was mentioning is an interesting thing that a lot of stations left shortwave but never dismantled the shortwave transmitters. I mean, there are some that did, Radio Canada, Radio Austria, and so on. Australia, sorry, not Austria, Australia. Not to mix, not exactly in the same part of the world. But there are quite a few shortwave broadcasters that left. And they just left everything there. As if somebody somewhere is saying, you know what? Let's just keep that accessible. If for some reason we might need it someday, it's going to be there. We won't have to rebuild anything. Arthur Solid Crafters says, look, Dr. Sisov got pirate earlier on 1720 kilohertz, some Spanish garbage. And man, I heard talking about that, it brings me back. I heard the guy that I really want to try to make a video out of it. And every time it happens, by the time that I do it, he's gone. But in the past 2 weeks, I've heard that CBer that is not very strong, but that plays interval signals. I'd be curious to know who that guy is, because he's always around channel 39, I remember once hearing him in the lower channels, but almost every time lately that I've heard him, it's channel 39. Pretty much always either Friday or Saturday night. And of course, I'm going to try to listen tonight and see if I can hear him. But he plays all of these interval signals. So, of course, he must be or has been at least a shortwave listener at some point. I need to really, really get that on when I hear him. And once I noticed by the order of interval signals that he was playing a YouTube video with many interval signals, because it was the same interval signals in the exact same order as a video that I had listened to on YouTube. So it's kind of funny, every time I hear him, I just leave I take one of my CB outs and just listen to that. It's kind of weird. I don't know who that guy is, but he takes time to do so. It takes time to broadcast interval signals. I wonder if he knows somebody's listening. Matt says, I think checking FT8 is probably the most effective way to gauge a band's opening, since it seems someone somewhere is always on FT8. That said, go to your preferred mode once you have. Yeah, that's one of the things I use FT8 a lot. Is if I hear nothing on the band, I'll go on FT8 frequency to see if there's activity. If I hear activity, I know the band's open. It's like 10 meters. How I would check if 10 meters is open, I go on 28074. If I hear FT8, 10 meters open. Okay. Cricket Ninja, I've sent CQ over 30 minutes several times, 40 meters to repeats it's all about patience. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it pays off. It pays off. That's for sure. Ancillary says, I just got my first shortwave radio. I would love to get started in a hobby, but I don't know where to start at this point. Where do I do since I have just bought my shortwave? One of the great websites that you could go to is shortwavelistening.com, first of all. swling.com. It has a lot of starter and beginner guides there. You can watch a lot of the videos on the channel here. Schedules, there's like a lot of websites for shortwave schedules, but start by tuning around. I think it's the best thing that you can do. Start by tuning around every frequency range and check out what you're hearing and try to find what frequency and what you're hearing. What radio did you get, actually? But there's a lot of videos on this channel also that show you all the basics of where and what to do. Dr. Sisop, interesting. I put my Grundig and Texan radio on 64 to 108 megahertz FM. I'm picking up signals on 68.5, 78.1, and 86.2. Clear and no bleed through from FM towers. Interesting. Hey, Mongoose. Nice to have you on board. $13,630. Yeah, I'm hearing it here. 13,630 is China Radio. Yeah. It's China Radio International from the Mali transmitter site in French. It sounded French. So that's China Radio International, and it's from Mali in Africa. 13,630. So it's really China Radio International in French. Kevin Gianapalo, my impression of World's Last Chance was a Buddhist-type mega church wrapped up in vegan ideals, flat earth. Wow. It's like the if anybody has listened a little bit to the Supreme Master TV broadcast of very pro vegan, and it's so unique, and like, let's save the planet and stuff. It almost is creepy at some point. When I listen to Supreme Master TV, some of you might remember a Japanese group called, and they had a radio station on shortwave called Radio Om Shinrikyo, and that was from Japan. And I actually have a QSL card here. They had programs that were pretty much like Supreme Master TV. Let's save our planet. Let's make sure everything's perfect and have a perfect life. And meanwhile, they were actually attacking the subway in Tokyo at some point with sarin gas. My impression, the more a broadcast seems peaceful, the more I find something's wrong with it. And it's just a little too much. NESX just got the CC Wi-Fi radio, worldwide radio, medium wave FM, worldwide shortwave broadcast radio, airband. Cool. eBurkett can receive Voice of America 15550. Cool. Dr. Sisop. I just lost where I was. Just got my old early 1990s Uniden HR 2510 radio out and going to services and put it back in operation. Cool. Joseph says the real breakthrough with shortwave is with Kiwi SDRs. If you think shortwave isn't active in your regions, just check out some of the Asian Kiwis. Oh yeah, absolutely. There are parts of the world where shortwave sounds like shortwave was in the 70s and 80s in North America. Cool AM says speedy lately activity from the Pirates for Peace movement is low. We need more pirates. By the way, and I don't know if you can talk to your anybody close to any pirate station. I had an idea because Wednesday there was a pirate broadcasting my show. A lot of you heard it. So I'm planning on doing a special pirate show in the next month or so. And I am planning also to give out my email and, of course, check out HF Underground and everywhere. Anybody that will broadcast my show on shortwave, anybody listening will get a EQSL, a special EQSL that I will be creating this in the next week or so. And I think that could be a lot of fun. And it's going to be a EQSL from the official shortwave channel. But for that, you'll have to hear my voice via a shortwave frequency of some sort. So maybe we could check on a date, and whatever pirate wants to do the rebroadcasting of my show, it doesn't have to be long, but could be like 15 minutes, half an hour, and that's it. There would be a special EQSL for you guys. So that could be cool, I think. What else do we have? What else do we have? Yep, it's in Africa. Mali is in Africa. Plus zero. As for the 70s, CB aside, we were very radio aware. We knew what shortwave broadcasting was. Couldn't have cared less. You didn't play what CKGM or SHUM or WABC was playing. So what was the point? Yeah, well, I was an hybrid because I loved music. I would listen to SHUM. I would listen to CKGM. Still remember CKGM 980 in the 80s with the Casey Kasem countdown on Sunday. Was it Sunday? Saturday or Sunday? I think it was Sunday. Part of my listening in the 80s was I was either doing shortwave or listening to music. So at night, or sometimes I would do both. I would listen to music for a while on my boombox, then I would go to shortwave. Wolfgang's moving to a Austrian pale ale. Cool. There you go. Take care, Kadarius. It's nice to have you on board. Stefan says, playing with the Skyway schedule helped me discover that my waterfall is full of China Radio International, even on different bands. Yeah, there are areas where there's a lot more, absolutely. Hisham 56 Hamilton, nice to have you here. Shady Power 90 from British Columbia. So yeah, I saw that picture you posted of the discount antenna, Tron. Estrella Garcia, nice to have you here, Estrella. What else? We're gonna check it out. Joe Sombrano says DRM on 9620. I think there is some at some point. 9620. Yeah, that sounds like. Yeah, that is DRM on 9620. And it's DRM from 9620. It's DRM from Radio Romania International in Spanish to South America. So it's DRM from Radio Romania. Ricardo Silva, nice to have you on board from Portugal. Vault says, wonder how the Carrington level event today would affect the daily life. Internet not working would be a minor issue. Oh yeah, that would have a major impact. That's for sure. And that would be where shortwave might be interesting again. Using a radio at least. Matt says WRMI is also on a cattle ranch, which I believe raises a lot of their funding. You could be right. I don't know exactly what's the setup of WRMI. That could be, of course. Take care, Lee. It was nice to have you on board. Matt says, personally, I don't scroll 14150 to 14225 often because of the mistakes I made answering people when I'm not supposed to. I wouldn't even have a way of asking them to QSY. Yeah. Ing Asan, 83. Two hands on the radio, just was tired of the trolls and all the... And I think it just didn't live up to what he wanted. James de Calais, bonjour et bienvenue du nord de la France. Nice to have you here. If you search for MLA30 down in the list, there's a loop antenna with a 9-volt battery. Better than the MLA30. Who has tried it? On AliExpress. I need to check that out. Joshua has got a Stella Artois beer. Cool. Yeah, the I saw that post about the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico that had a big problem, unfortunately. Rufus Newt cracked open a tall boy of Labatt Blue. I haven't had Labatt Blue in such a long time. No, I'm not one of his relatives. Shannon Harvey says there's obviously enough radio going on around the world, and we see the important role radio plays. Our International Radio Report show has been on the air every week since November 1987. Yeah. With all that effort, we hope someone's listening and that people still care about what's going on in the radio world. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it has an impact, a big impact, you know. Matt, I only heard part of your comments about hearing interval signals. I know that Radio Harvard International has done that a few times. Yeah, no, it was on the CB band. There's a CBer that I hear on channel 39 from time to time. He's not very strong. And I will check 9670 cool AM. See if I hear anything. There is a trace of something. It's washed out in the noise. I see a very light trace in the waterfall cool AM radio, but definitely not strong enough to make it. But there is something there with some fading on 9670, for sure. Joshua has WRMI 9955 in South Carolina. Oh, Voice of the Report of the Week. Yeah, I was listening to Voice of the Report of the Week last night, actually. Artist All the Croucher's Kitchen. Supreme Master TV is a great listen. I can't stop listening whenever I come across it. Hey, Jeff Barrett. Yep. And they had that with Shoko Hasahara. I have a QSL card with his picture on it here. And they had a shortwave outlet called Radio Shingirikyo in the 90s. Imagine how surprised you are to have listened to a broadcast from that religious group, actually get a QSL card. I'm trying to see because the QSL cards are here not very far, but I don't know where it is exactly in there. But you got your QSL card from that station, and someday you look in the news and on TV and you see that group actually did the Tokyo sarin gas attack, and you're like, wow, that is nuts. Matt, it turned out that Sickle Radio was the one streaming you. I can let him know when you plan on that. He's a regular on the chat on HFU. Well, maybe we could work up something, and I'd be able to. I'd be happy to send out an EQSL to anybody that sends me a report. We're gonna work that out, Matt. I'm gonna check out for a date that we will do it officially and see. Mongoose, because of no activity on the amateur bands and noise on my shortwave, I've been selling my gear since beginning of the summer. I miss radio, not like it was in the 80s. There's a huge problem with that. How many ham radio operators quit the hobby because of the noise level, because they just got fed up? Just an example. There's different things that make us change our hobbies and change in life. One of them is life itself. There's a lot of stuff happening in our personal lives that will, change all of that, and that will that will make us, sometimes get away from our hobbies. And it happened to me so many times over the course of the last, 38 years of radio listening that I sometimes was off for months. I even wonder if I wasn't off for maybe a year or two at some point before I came back. I mean, my radios were always there and always ready to work. And I have a hard time, there's kind of a blur in a lot of my, in certain times of my life, there's the blur of, for me, the 90s is a decade of what the hell happened. That's my decade of what the hell happened in my life. The 80s and what I remember of the 70s of my being a young boy. The 80s as my teenage years. Got lots of nice memories and shortwave and stuff. Then the 90s are kind of a, young adult and trying to find out where the hell you're going to be in life and what you're going to do with your life. And so the 90s are kind of a big part of it is a big blur in my head. And it's like my life came back in the, early 2000s when I started working for myself as a tech guy and then doing YouTube stuff. The 90s are that period where I'm not too sure what I did with shortwave. I'm obviously have QSL cards. I listened, but I think there were some periods of times when I didn't listen a lot. And I was mentioning that on Wednesday. There was a time when I was a big scanner radio buff, and I started tuning around VHF, UHF. And you have so much time, so if you spend 6 hours listening to the VHF, UHF range, you obviously will not spend that 6 hours listening to shortwave. One of the sad parts of that is I missed out on many, many different little things. But there's a lot of, listening that was still there. I still remember listening to, Radio St. Helena Day. That was such a blast. I'll always remember that was that time of year when, oh, okay, it's time for Radio St. Helena Day. They're going to broadcast, that once a year broadcast over that. Still remember the frequency, 1109.2.5 kilohertz upper side beams. Boy, that was fun. There were things like that I remember. And, but I look at the hobby, there are a lot of hams when there's contests. So obviously there's a lot of amateur radio operators out there. Every time there's a contest, man, the amount of activity is crazy. So there's a lot of contesters. I can understand that some like contests and it's mostly what they want. But when you hear a band full of signals in a contest and you listen to it on a Tuesday afternoon or, evening, and you barely have stations, we can say the most popular bands are 80, 40, and 20 meters. These three bands probably have 70% of all ham activity. 80 meters, there's a lot of activity. I mean, especially when we get into winter, there's like, rag chewing going on and talk of prostates and it's not to be bad, but it's like, yeah, well, last night, I sprained an ankle while I was going out and mowing the lawn. Yeah, okay. Oh, well. Okay. But, there's activity at least. That's okay. 40 meters. Some interesting activity there. It's a band I like at night because 40 meters can surprise you. I still remember last year when I heard that ham station from South Africa around 0200. and he was there every single night for like 2 months. And that was my fun part. It was like every night I was tuning around the frequency where he was in hopes of hearing him do contacts. Kind of reminded me of Radio RSA, you know. So he would do contacts and stuff. 20 meters, kind of a lot of activity. But it's obvious that as time goes by, there's less activity than there was. I seem to see less activity on 20 meters, 40 meters. There's a lot of FT8 stuff. Now, some people say, well, it's because everybody's moving to FT8. I don't think so. I think somebody that enjoys talking on single sideband will always want to talk on single sideband. I think it's simply a demonstration of maybe the high noise levels and all of that is taking a toll on a lot of us. You know, I told you the story of when I moved here and the noise level was so high. I think the first year or two, I didn't do a lot of listening here because I was thinking, well, okay, I'm not hearing half of what I heard before when I lived at the other address. It's kind of boring suddenly, and it takes a toll on you. Your favorite hobby is suddenly not as fun because you're not getting what you want. And the noise level, I think, is taking a toll on a lot of hands. And I'm sure that the noise levels made a lot of shortwave listeners go away and decide, you know what, there's nothing to listen to anymore if they didn't know why. And if they knew why, well, it was like, okay, too much noise, my hobby's gone. Which is sad. David in Barcelona, Spain. Nice to have you on board. EA3IEK, Raptor 22 Stealth. Nice to have you on board. Stéphane says, loves La Fin du Monde, love this beer name. Yeah. I don't think Dr. Sisop says, remember, FCC's non-monitoring shortwave in the US. Have fun, just stay off the handbands. Stay off the handbands and don't go on a frequency where there's some important communications. Matt says, I think they do monitor, but don't bother with enforcement unless they get a specific complaint. Heck, wide HWH gets right in the 41 meter band, but doesn't QRM anyone. The thing about pirates is, even on the International Radio Report, we talk about FM pirates very often that get caught. If you don't do interference to anything, I don't think you get caught. You get caught because somebody complains. Without a complaint, nobody does anything. Do they still monitor shortwave? I don't know. I think they do if there's a complaint about it, but I don't think they'll go and start looking for pirates. And I mean, a shortwave pirate is much more difficult to find whoever did the transmission. It's very different. We're getting at 22 UT, and I believe, let's check it out here. Do we have a signal for We have 9690, so it's Friday. Remember, guys, Radio Exterior de España, which has a very good signal right now. On 9690 kilohertz in Spanish. It's going to be in English in a minute from now. 9690 kilohertz. Radio Exterior de España. And there usually is Voice of Turkey 9830, but they look like they're kind of not on yet. But there's always a problem with Voice of Turkey. Noah Rollins, what's this channel about? It's about radio. Shortwave radio in particular. Take care, René Charbonnier. It was always nice to have you on board from the Netherlands. Matambali 9690, Radio Exterior de España doing well. Joseph says 9690 pretty weak. West Coast. Yeah, West Coast is it's a harder one for you guys. Joshua, have a great evening. Always nice to have you on board. Don't eat too much. Thank you, Asan83. Elton Byington, nice to have you here. Jose Augusto, nice to have you here. Rufus Newt, 9690, strong in Laurentian Valley, Ontario. Jeff King, yep. Actually, WRMI always has been WRMI. It's just that WRMI purchased the family radio WIFR transmitter site in Okeechobee, Florida. It took a tour some 20 antenna towers. I could hear the wires buzz, cattle grazing all over a huge field, completely obvious to what was going on just above their heads. Jeff Barrett says 2020, hold my beer. Yeah. I don't have a copy of Andy Yoder's Pirate Annual books. Does he still have one, a recent one? Does he have one for like 2020? Mickey Dalmage, what happened to you in the 90s? 2 words, Duran Duran. No, that happened more in the 80s than in the 90s. If I had to put a artist name on the 90s, it would be Sting. Matt says, did you ever hear Radio Metallica worldwide? Oh, yeah, absolutely. I understand that Pirate claimed to be broadcasting on 10,000 watts. I heard Radio Metallica worldwide a few times. Yep. Matt says, welcome to the prostate net. Oh, man. Elton Byington, been missing for a while, been in hospital with cancer. Oh, man, I hope you are getting better. I'll be out in a couple of weeks. So I want you to take care of yourself, Elton, K3JWA in Baltimore. And we want to see you back. Full health, enjoying the shows again. Here's to you. Cheers, man. Butcher's Out of Crafter's Kitchen. I listen to Ham for some reason. I love 160 and 80 meters. I think for the nets and long conversations. And it's cool to hear old timers operating on AM. I like the AM sound of hams. I like 80 meters for one thing, and 160 also. There's a lot of very knowledgeable hams there. And when they start talking about anything that is technical, it's almost always interesting. That's what I'm searching for. I'll often go through all the people talking and stop on one that is talking, one group that's talking about you know, technical stuff. So Voice of Turkey is on now, 9830, but there's that radio teletype signal on it. What's sad about the radio teletype is that it's dead on 9830, so you can't get away from it in upper or lower sideband. So English from Voice of Turkey over with some RTTY on 9830, and good signal from Spain in English on 9690. Matt just got the September issue of QST. Looks like they have a nice in-depth review of the SDR Play RSPDX. Oh, really? Hey guys, we've got a visitor. So in case he doesn't want to come here, let's try it out. We've got a visitor. He's right here. Da, 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 da. Mr. Paul is in the house. Mr. Paul is in the house. Come on. So Mr. Paul is in the house. A quick little hello from Mr. Paul for everybody. Usually when he's sitting like that, it's because he wants food. Jeff Barrett is so the RSPDX, and there was a nice review also of the it was in last month Spectrum Monitor. They had a nice review of the XH Data D808. Guy was really happy with it. Jeff Barrett, 8846 upper sideband, New York radio, busy tonight. Cool. Well, you know, the air traffic is slowly starting to get back. So as time goes by, we should hear more and more traffic on these frequencies. What else do we have? Tron says 9690 not reaching in Norway. Might be skipping over you. What else do we have? Let me try to get back where I was. Tron bought 60 meters of coax LMR 195. Yeah, on shortwave, unless your RG58 was really bad, on shortwave you shouldn't see that much of a difference. But on VHF, UHF, you should see a huge difference. RG58 gets bad when you start getting on the VHF and especially the UHF range, because there it gets a lot of loss. LMR is great on the UHF and above range. Yeah, that's the problem of 160 meters, Matt. Having a decent antenna that's small enough for where we live, but good enough for 160 meters. Jim F. from Rhode Island, nice to have you here. Cool AM radio. Up to what time does the 9670 kilohertz frequency continue? What's the time that it stops? Matt says the FCC has monitoring stations across the country, and I'd bet they use worldwide SDRs and skimmers to find illegal signals, but there are no agents or will to enforce without a complaint. Yeah, that's probably what I think. They got it real nice today. The FCC in the 80s or the 70s needed to have monitoring stations. They could just go on any Kiwi SDR today and use them to check out if the pirate's there. I didn't think of that, but it makes their life a lot easier today. Sheng-He, co-channel interference on 9690 Radio España from Radio Free Asia on 9685. Gordon Lyle, nice to have you here from Southern Illinois, Gordon. Listening to the show while working in the garage. Cool. Nice to have you here. Matt, RE starting in English 9690. Shady Pyro has got the Cuban lady. Not on 10715. They're on 11635. They forgot to QSY. Glenn Hauser always says, there's always something wrong in Cuba. Jeff Barrett, 9690, Radio Exterior, blasting into Cincinnati. Cool. Ulysses says simple 44544 Radio Exterior España here in Argentina. And it's a Sony ICF 2010 random wire, 45 meters long, in a 9-1 ballon. Cool. Hey, Keegan in Northwest Arkansas. Nice to have you here. Happy birthday, Keegan. 24, man. 24. How many of us would like to go back to 24? 24 years old and a shortwave listener in 2020. Hey, being 24 and shortwave listener, so I was 24 in 1993? And being a shortwave listener was weird back then, so it's still weird today. It's even worse today. James Farley, nice to have you here from New Jersey. Okay, 9690, good in Norway. Okay, cool. Sheng-He has a station that started broadcasting 9830. Yeah, Voice of Turkey. Thomas Olson from Baltimore, nice to have you here. The noise on the band's shortwave and AM broadcast has increased in the last 10 years. Frustrating, but still scan around. I have to get out in the country like you do, Joe. Yeah, there's no choice. The RTTY is really strong today here too, Matt, on 9830. It's difficult to listen to Turkey because most of the time the 9830 is the RTTY is there but weak, so I can actually manage here. But tonight, man, the RTTY is winning. Sheng-He can hear 9830 clearly in Europe. Cool. Joseph Newhouse, 9830 weak. Rodolfo 65, nice to have you on board from New York City. Everybody happy to see Paul. Eddie Essex says, where did the HF radio operators go? With the current propagation, hundreds of thousands have moved to DMR, D-Star, or Infusion. You can always find someone there. Yeah, but I don't think that is we always try to find a reason why something is happening. One of them we hear often, and that's one that I hear a lot on ham radio, it's FT8 and JT65 is the mode that everybody's going now, and it removed everybody from a single sideband. And I don't go for that. I don't go for that for a very simple reason. You know what? Single sideband operators talk and like to talk. They want to continue talking. They're not the guys that goes to FT8. FT8 as its audience, like D-Star or any digital mode as its audience. But I don't agree that it's taking away hams from other parts. What it might do is split hams into more diffuse and more diverse world of operating. And that might have some effect on the overall activity of, say, a certain mode. But what I mostly see, honestly, is a lot of hams just not doing ham. They're there, they exist, they have a call sign, they're not on the radio. Yeah, Paul is great, Matt. Absolutely. It's perfect. It's perfectly meowing like usual. Nissan Greenwich, nice to have you here. 9830 S9 plus 20 into Dublin. Oh man, it's like that. That's nothing. So there's even worse than that. Below my desk here is crazy. Ricardo Silva says, just got the D808, great little radio. Let's see its longevity. I think it's gonna last. Mine, you know what? I've taken mine to D expeditions. I put it in my short pockets. It's been banged around. It's been moved around. I've got the D808 now for what, a year and a half at least, and works great. Love it. Mark Cancela says, I did a video about pirate radio back in my college days, and the chief of the Metropolitan Police gave us an interview saying they wouldn't prosecute as long as they didn't interfere with other stations. It's a typical thing, you know. They don't do much if there's no reason to do something. And I'm pretty sure even in the last 10-20 years, if there were no complaints, they would do nothing, you know. And it's funny because we talk about pirate radio, but I always want to say that, you know, shortwave pirates, which seems like chaos, is in actually there's order in the chaos and how they do things, and try to avoid not interfering with some real signal, and carefully choose the frequency ranges. And honestly, we never, or maybe not never, but it doesn't happen very often that a pirate will invade an amateur band. There's kind of a respect, even though a pirate station is not legal. Jeff Barrett says, Paul is typical cat. I don't care about your camera. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a very different thing. Yeah, you just missed Paul, Bobby. Eddie SX says, where did the HF prop radio operators go? Oh, yeah, this is what we talked about it. I got back a little. Okay. Joseph says, if you go back to 24 with everything I know now, sure. Going back to being dumb as I was 24. Yeah, that I totally agree. Totally agree. So they played Marvin Gaye on REE. Yeah, 24 is kind of a blur for me too. 24, 93, I was between two jobs. Nothing exciting. I think it was one of those times when I was just thinking, what the hell I'm going to do in my life? Little did I know that this would be my life. Medina Mike. Nice to have you here. 24 years old, shortwave awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Tron, my girl Zappa the cat says hello to Paul. Eddie Essex says, as HF operators are getting older, retirement homes. Yeah, of course, that's for sure. You know what, Tron? I'm gonna give me a little bit of time. Maybe we could do a next week. I'm having a week off. Maybe we could do a special Sunday show the week after, where we'll do it on the VHF channel, where I don't do a lot of stuff, and we'll dedicate it to satellite listening on VHF UHF. How about that? Would you be happy? And we'll talk about the frequencies and the way it works, because here we're more in the shortwave. I'm hesitating to talk too much about anything above 30. Glenn, nice to have you here from Tennessee. Dan V, nice to have you here from Ohio. N8WJZ. Mr. Lucky Train, nice to have you on board. Better late than ever, they say. K6YYL, Kimberly says she's always calling CQ and listening. One mistake many new hams are told to get a handheld 2-meter radio. They are not experiencing HF nor getting out and give up. You know, one of the biggest things that I see is that when I got into scanner radio, and I think scanner radio helped that, it seemed that like in the 90s, when scanner radio craze was really high, there were a lot of new hams getting their license. But one thing that I noticed, they were all stuck on VHF UHF bands. And one thing that I noticed is that a big majority of 2-meter operators do nothing else than 2-meter. It's as if, some of them were CBers. It's as if they decided that 2 meters is kind of cool. It's I got my ham license now. I'm a cool guy. I do 2 meters, no more CB. But they never move beyond 2 meters. When I get my ham license, 2 meters, except for maybe satellites, ain't going to be my thing. For me, it's a glorified CB band, and that's it. And it's okay that it exists, and it's okay that it's like that. Some hams, that's what they want. Tonight at I think it starts at 9 p.m. local. There's the Canada Net in D-Star. It's kind of cool. I like to listen to that, mostly because it's using D-Star, and I can, use D-Star on the ICOM ICR30. But I will not be the guy going into an ad saying, hello, everybody. I'll rant here, and I don't want to offend anybody, but, when I listen to an ad and it's like, hi, my name is Mark, and, tonight, it's beautiful in Montreal, and, I was walking my dog, and I heard the net, and I thought, oh, wow, this is cool. I'm going to say hello to everybody, and thank you to the operator of the net. It's so cool, and really, really enjoy listening to this net, and hope that everything's all right with everybody, and bye-bye. And you're like, what the hell's that? Why is there even a net for somebody that will talk once a day or once a week and just go on a net and say, yeah, so I was walking my dog yesterday. It's like, come on, what the hell's that? But that said, that ranting is not against the net or what the content is. It's all right. And there's some, ham activity. But it's not what my ham activity would be like. If, yeah, I'll get on it. My name's Joel, and I'm in Montreal on my balcony, and I'm having a beer and enjoying the net tonight. And don't forget, guys, to go to 80 meters. We're going to talk about prostate tonight. I know it's a cliche or maybe a bad way of I'm not laughing at amateur radio but somehow when I see that, it's like, yeah, that's what amateur radio is all about now. um I don't know, it's just, anyways, it's not me. And if any of you out there is going and talk about prostate tonight on a ham 2-meter net, it's perfectly fine. I'm not laughing at you or not being disrespectful. It's just an example of, I do understand everyday life gets into your hobby, but also at the same time, it's a technical hobby. And I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Kimberly says, I wish they would start on 10 meters and experience HF. Yeah, it's true. You're totally right on that. Jeff Barrett, Jill, you have a pretty awesome life. Yes, I do. Absolutely. And that I cannot disagree with. Matias Ramos, I say, have you here? So not Sunday of the next week, but Sunday that would make it what? Sunday I need to check it out here. If I look at the calendar, so that would make it on Sunday the 29th, the 30th, sorry. Sunday the 30th of August. Maybe we could do a Sunday net. Talking about prostates. No, talking about satellites on the VHF channel. So that could be fun. And I'll do it at 20 UT or something like that. Just like this show right now. Matt says there's a huge amount of internet-connected ham radio these days. IRLP, Echolink, System Fusion. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I am okay with all of that, and I'm okay with, let's mix all the technologies together. It's super cool. But man, if I have the choice of using D-Star or Echolink or whatever and talking to a guy in Europe through 2 meters through internet, I'd rather be on 20-meter band, HF, and talking to a guy in Europe through radio waves that will be crossing the Atlantic Ocean instead. Shitty Pyro 90, 7310, Radio Romania. Talking about fake news. Craig Peters, the only main plus for new operators starting on 2-meter band is that they can cut their teeth on 2-meter and get the protocol right and iron out the minor mistakes without it going worldwide. Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, the first thing is let's get hams, and then maybe we talk about that, and we talk about mistakes, but maybe also as you guys are AM operators should also participate in that and help them understand there's a big world of everything ham radio out there. Oh yeah, in the late 80s, early 90s, man, analog cell phones. That was a lot of fun to listen to, especially on Friday and Saturday at midnight. Oh man, drunk people and sex lines. It was like, wow, okay. Okay, Joe Hottie just passed his AM exam yesterday. Cool. Medina Mike got some short TV skip from here in Pennsylvania. in Cleveland, Ohio, into Buffalo. Wow, cool. Cool. Hey, 45 unit. Nice to have you here. Kimberly says, my prostate never works. Eric Cottrell says, like the typical 2 meter conversations years ago. Well, I got up this morning and decided to have breakfast. I had scrambled eggs again this morning. Yeah, I generally find that conversation on 70 centimeters are more technical than 2 meters. It's interesting. I don't know if it's because of the radios they need or something, but I would say that those that do 70 centimeters are a little more technical. KSH 5264, can't stop listening. Just got the RTL SDR. Which coax to use with it for a long wire? KSH 5264 holds CB skip SSB handle. And ham ticket on the bucket list. Cool. Just get yourself some RG58. It's going to work great, and it's going to enable you to have an outdoor antenna. Shelly, cooling off a little bit in Pennsylvania. Nice to have you here. Joe Sambrania says, I'm at this stage, life, work, wife, decisions. Takes me away from my hobbies and personal projects if I don't complain and stay stopped. Yeah. Well, these nets, Matt, these nets are always the same people. Listen to those nets regularly. It's always the same people. Eric Cottrell says he occasionally gets on the nut net. It's at 11 p.m. every night on a local repeater. A lot of different subjects, including technical ones. That's more of my thing, honestly. David says, agree with you, Joe. One part of the communication happens through the internet. It might as well happen entirely online. Yeah. I mean, what's the difference in I'm going to use a transceiver that's going to be linked to the internet for another guy in Europe? You know what? It's called Skype or Zoom or Teams or whatever. We already have it. And if somebody tells me, well, it's not wireless, yes, it is. My laptop's on Wi-Fi. So you know what? I'm using my laptop's transceiver to communicate right now through the internet to you guys around the world. So technically, it's the same as using a ham transceiver to do communications through the internet. Where's the difference? Oh, I don't need a license. But yeah, okay. Matt says a network of linked repeaters is good for local ops. There's our sets that cover almost all of Colorado and always monitor for distress calls. Ham radio is very, very broad hobby. Oh yeah, and I mean it's nice that exists. I mean, I still remember when they had to do all these DTMF codes to open up the links between repeaters everywhere, and then you'd have a big network of repeaters. It's kind of cool. It's super nice technologies and everything. But it's, there are certain aspects that you're like, yeah, okay. Kimberly, not advocating to start out on 2 meters. We should Elmer. Oops. Lost the. We should Elmer and get them on HF because most never advance from 2 meters and they buy the cheapest and hardest to program HTs and give up. Yeah. And a lot of hams get on 2 meters. They do it for 6 months, then they're tired, and it's like, well, same old thing all the time. What did let's Joe Sambrania says 12030 S3 in Brazil. One of the things that we got to remember How many of you have been in the hobby for a very long time? You must have noticed one thing. Look at me listening to shortwave for 38 years and radio in general also. I moved on from just shortwave listening and international broadcasts to utilities, to hams, to VHF, UHF, to satellites, to that is what keeps me driving the radio fun. More and more stuff added all the time of these new technologies and these things that I don't know of. And, you know, that is why I'm still here, probably. Because if we stay in one specific thing, I mean, in a year, 2 years, you get bored and it's like, well, okay, so that was AM radio operating. Okay, well, goodbye. You know? Al Sam says, my first contacts were all on HF. That's a good way of thinking also. Rudolph Smith says, go on HF, and if you make mistakes, well, welcome to the club. That's true also. Just go on the air and, you know, hey, kid, you know that you shouldn't be doing this or you should be doing that in that specific way, in a polite way. It's called learning. You know, I think we also got to understand that our own personal life is a hit and miss thing. Huh? We grow up, and there's a lot of stuff we learn from doing a mistake. We did something that we should not be doing. And somebody told us, and it was like, oh, okay, well, I'm not going to do it again. So just do it, you know? As long as it's not going to get the old grumpy ham that's just going to say, well, get out of here, kid. So 6905, I'm not hearing anything. Philip Doherty, nice to have you here from Ireland. Jeff Barrett says there is a simplex net that I like to join local talk. I feel like guys on King of the Hill leaning against the fence. It's also handy for bad weather in the area. And you know what? It's one of the interesting aspects. Also, I always been a big fan of. So when I got my first, walkie-talkies, cheap walkie-talkies when I was young, it immediately my interest was, hey, let's see how far we can go with these things. Because for me, the further away we were from each other and still be able to talk, the more amazing what I was doing was cool. Radio signal was crossing a really good distance to get to my friend on the other end. And of course, at first, the cheap walkie-talkies meant it was one corner street to the other corner street, and that's pretty much it. And then I got the Radio Shack talkies that were more high-hand and 3-channel or 6-channel or whatever. Now it was not one corner to one corner. It was 10 corner streets. I was like, oh, this is cool. We're really getting further away here. For me, that's the fun. The radio waves, the biggest distance possible in just using radio waves is just so cool. Matt says there's a daily weather net in Colorado that happens simultaneously on 80 meters and 2-meter repeaters collecting weather data. It's happened every day since it started in 1956. Wow. Angus Tiana, nice to have you here. David EA3IEK says, although I'm still open to using systems like Echolink or D-Star, my Icon 7100 is D-Star capable for experimentation purposes. RF all the way on HF is what makes most sense for a kind of comms. You know what I like about the D-Star when I listen to, say, the Canada net on Friday evening, Saturday morning, it's the Francophone net, is more of the technology behind it. I find it fascinating that my radio is decoding a digital signal for communications. But my fascination is that RF signal from the repeater into my radio, and my radio decoding that communication. It's fun to hear all the stations across Canada and some from the US when the Canada net is on. It is cool. But it doesn't impress me that part of that and that net goes through the internet. That is the part that I'm not impressed with. Because for me, it's like, yeah, okay, well, the internet's the internet. You know, I would be more impressed probably with I don't know, a digital net on HF where everybody's at their positions around the world and communicating through that with a radio signal directly, you know. But we can't shut down how cool all of this is still. I mean, it's still ham radio. It's a different way of communicating, and we need to embrace that. Because ham radio is ham radio. It's not this big of what we do. It's a huge world of different ways of communicating, and that is fine, and it's actually perfect that it happens this way. And I think we each have our own drive of what we feel is amateur radio or shortwave radio or radio in general. And that's also fine. Kimberly says 3 hams, 2 technician class amateurs, and 1 extra class emailed me looking for advice on antennas. That was after I made a rare appearance on the 2-meter net. AA6DD, and I gave them advice. Elmering. Yeah, and we need to do that also. I mean, part of that is what I do here. Trying to, help anybody that doesn't know what it is. You know, we must embrace the fact that there's a lot of people that are shy of asking a question or asking help. A lot in the hobby will not ask for help. It could be just because they're shy. It could be because they met one of those grumpy hams that just, made them feel bad. And then they will never ask for anything after that because, you treated that guy like trash. He's never going to want to ask another question ever again. And this is why this exists. This is why good hams exists that will tell you, well, this is, I still remember one ham that came here, and I haven't seen him in a long time in the channel, but sent me an email and said, you know what? What I'm impressed is that you're not a ham, but I learned things about my own ham hobby that I didn't even know about because you had the knowledge and you talked about it. And thank you so much. Well, that guy in that message said, I asked a few questions at a local ham club, and I felt like I was treated like, a newbie that what am I doing here? And unfortunately, how many hams and how many shortwave listeners, we talked about it in the past. There are hams out there that will poo-poo shortwave listeners. Well, I can tell you one thing. I can poo-poo a lot more hams than some of those hams can poo-poo shortwave listeners. With my knowledge, even though it's not perfect, even though there's a big chunk of the knowledge I'm missing or I don't necessarily have, I can tell you one thing. I would be one big ass shortwave listener to poo-poo a lot of hams. I can tell you that. Casey Red Dragon, nice to have you here. RFDXer, career equals electronics test engineer thanks to shortwave. Absolutely. Absolutely. It brings us to different worlds. Tron, I've been a ham operator for 10 years, but I changed directions to shortwave listening. Much more interesting. Even if I have a rig, I only use it for listening. A lot of hams actually listen much more than anything else. You know? Nick, K9XN. Nice to have you on board. Casey Red Dragon, 7095, Olivia mode. Greg Peters, the other benefit of 2 meter is this quite often gets you in touch with local ops who will help you through and getting into HF. Yeah, keep away from the cheap, nasty HTs, and local ops will support. Yeah, absolutely, Craig. G5 CWP. And we're here to help everybody also. Harry Anderson. You want to do some weather facts? Kimberly, EA3IEK, David says, it's like I always say on HF, what's surprising is for the signal to propagate to a certain place on modes that make use of the internet. What would be surprising would be that signal not to make it to the same place. Kimberly says, I really hate when anyone has an encounter with a grumpy ham with prostate problems. Nick says, Jill, you said it. Ham radio is great for the radio hobby. I like shortwave listening and all radio lovers. Some people might not like to talk, but rather listen is all, and that's okay too. It's all about radio. Yep. Rufus Newt, electronics tech, 27 years in the service field. Nothing gets fixed anymore. Had to let a lot of good people go. Now I feed a recycling machine. Things change. You know, I'm happy to be at this point in life with what I do with YouTube, because when I started fixing computers in like 2000, the average computer was like $1,500, $2,000. People were buying more than $1,000 to get a PC. So if you had to fix and had to explain that it cost $220, well, $220 on a $1,500 computer, explainable. You're not going to spend another $1,500. But on 15 years, the average price of a PC went from like $1,500 to $500. Now, try to explain to a lady, so I need to change your hard drive, and the reason your computer is slow is because I need to add more RAM, and plus my time, that's $250. Yeah, but I just paid $500 for the computer. It's half of its price. I totally get it. The average isn't the same. You know, there was a guy that I that was telling, he was a plumber, and he was telling me all the time, so, well, you can charge. I said, look, man, you're a plumber. You go into people homes that they paid $400,000 for their home. When you pay $400,000 for your home, you can pay $2,000 for the plumbing, because for the price of the house versus the plumbing, it's a reasonable rate. I go to people that have $400 computers. I can't charge $300 to fix it. They're going to say, the hell with it, I'm going to buy a new computer. And I knew that I had to move on to something else because I knew that as time went by, it was more and more difficult. My uncle, one of my uncles that died in the 90s, was a radio TV repair guy. He had learned how to repair radios and TVs in the 50s and made his living, most of his living with that. But when we reached the early 90s, I remember him coming over and, him looking at me and saying, people don't have their TVs repaired anymore. And people do not have radios repaired at all. And he had kind of recycled and, VHS repairing and all of that. But as he was saying, is this, there are less and less people now inclined to wanting to get something repaired because they cost almost nothing now. When it breaks down, you buy a new one. That changes a lot, So the world is changing on that side, that's for sure. Casey Red Dragon, Spain on 9690. Nick says, grumpy old crusty rude hams can jog on. They are out there, but there are many, many more good hams than bad. Oh, absolutely. And that I'm sure. Medina Mike, CB always been fun, and you can talk around the world on SSB with no extra power. Hams, sometimes they seem stuffy. And I talked to Jamaica last night on 12 watts. That's a perfect example. If you want to bring a CBer into your ham hobby, don't laugh at the CBer. Because for me, a guy that gets a CB and wants to try to communicate is as cool as a guy that's getting his ham ticket as a shortwave listener for the first time. He's got a radio. He's got a transceiver. He wants to use it and do something with it. Marvin Montz, good comments about the art of shortwave listening versus hams. Ham radio license requirements are 100% less than they were, and many donos have become hams. Yeah, absolutely. Nick loves having QSO with folks, but yeah, problem 80% of the time I'm listening. Thomas Olson, question, does anyone repair all wave portables? Or is it too expensive like most equipment? Pretty much all the portables we have today are at a price point where it's just the same price or even less expensive to just buying a new one than having them repaired, unfortunately. Karyomo Wasman, nice to have you on board from Indonesia. Nice to have you here. Paul is great, and he was there just half an hour ago. It's nice to have you on board. David says, same here. My ICOM IC 7100 transceiver sits on receive most of the time. Many times because I like tinkering a lot. Well, good morning, Curiosma. The Blind Picker. Nice to have you here, Rob. W0RAB in Connecticut. Packet on shortwave. Well, it's a form of communication. It's a form of digital. It's one of those digital communications. And the fact that they're short bursts of transmissions often gives a higher rate of success, especially with fading. Keegan nice, says his dad, W9JEF, repaired TVs in the early 60s. Al-Mesam, 9830 is Voice of Turkey. Should be Voice of Turkey. David KJ4CMY. I'm a ham radio operator and shortwave listener. I still have my CB2. Rufus, still do vintage guitar amps and still people complain about prices. I do like being able to charge more after they let someone hack it cheaper. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Caesar. Uh, it will depend on the prices of these radios. I don't know if I will, first of all, if I ever have a review of one of them, it will be on the production versions. That will be the official version sent out. As for the rest, I don't know. H501 and PL990 are very expensive. So I'm not really sure. Maybe PL330 if it's in the price range that's affordable. But we'll be checking that out, that's for sure. Thanks, Blind Picker. Always nice to have you here. Al in Westport, Maine. No, Massachusetts. Sorry. Nice to have you here, Al. So, there's so much happening in the world of our hobby, and I think it's nice to have everything with all aspects of it. I have no problem with having communications that part of it go through the internet because the internet's part of our lives. But we have to embrace every part of the hobby, except that it is there. Not ranting at it. Too many people rant at, oh, FT8 is killing the hobby. No, it's not. There's the FT8 crowd. That's it. I'll say it. I've said it in the past. There are some people that don't like to talk. Some people don't like to talk. There are virtual stuff sometimes that happen that people want me to participate. And there was one at one point and said, I'm trying to do a meetup with the gangs of people of radio and amateur radio. No one wants to participate. Well, you know what? No, not everyone wants to have their face on the camera. A lot of people don't like that. They're not all like me, just like being here and talking for hours at a time. It's not everybody's thing to do that. It's not everybody's thing to want to talk on HF. It's all right. FT8 is, you're there in that digital hash. Nobody knows who you are really except for your call. You don't have to talk. And for a lot of people, talking to somebody else they don't know is a huge effort. So we got to think about that also. It's something that people are shy sometimes. So every aspect of the hobby has its purpose. And no, it's not one thing that kills a hobby more than any other thing. The hobby in general in itself is kind of killing itself a little bit in other things. And the fact that, it's not talked about much. You don't learn about amateur radio in school. They're not talking about ham radio when you're in high school. You don't even know it exists. There's tons of things people just don't know it exists. And I think ham radio, shortwave radio listening, stamp collecting, whatever. I think if you go into each of these hobbies have a kind of a declining phase right now because less and less people do that. And it's up to us to come back and help out, and explain what all of this is all about. A lot of hams from the past and a lot of shortwave listeners from the past came from CB radio. What are these low frequency digital signals like 510? There's a lot of Navtex. There's a lot of Navtex around those frequencies at I think it's 514 kilohertz that you can hear with maritime broadcasts. Yeah, but Banggood has only the pre-production Caesar. They're not the new ones. They're not in production yet. I'm not broadcasting. I'm on YouTube, Aaron. Sam says, I don't care to talk much. Listen 99% of the time. Shitty Pyro 90 says, the pirate was relaying this Wednesday. Yeah, despite there was a pirate relaying on 6955. Mickey Dalmage, time to promote the International Radio Report. It's a show about radio. And we've got a great show coming up, actually, with some scoops of new stuff happening. So the International Radio Report, of course, is a show about radio that can be heard on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal, Sunday morning, 14:30 UTC, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. And if you're not in Montreal or near Montreal to listen to the FM signal, our show is also streamed on the internet at ckut.ca. And you can actually go on ckut.ca and listen to the archives, where you'll have 3 months of shows and listen to Sheldon Harvey and me talk about radio. So it's a great, great little show, 30 minutes. And if you like it, why not join the International Radio Report Facebook page? We have a lot of stuff there that are compliments to the show that we listen to. Hey guys, there's some Morse code on 6905. There's Morse code on 6905 upper sideband that just popped up. And now there's some music. Pirate just signed on 6905 upper sideband. Make a record today. Broadcast for at least 4 hours. My record is 5 hours and 30 minutes, I think. Aaron says, just bought a Texan 380. Excited to get into the hobby. Just don't know where to start. Can't find many channels. Yeah, I mean, you might have to move away from your home if you don't hear a lot of stuff. But start by checking out Shortwave schedules, eibispace.de, and short-wave.info to get up to date with what stations are on the air and what time. Remember, midday is not the best time. It's later afternoon, evenings. Nick says, I don't personally enjoy FT8, but I don't poo-poo those who do. It's all about freedom, baby. And if they like it, then that's good. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, it's like I'm not poo-pooing people talking about prostate on 2 meters. If that's their thing, it's fine. They're still hams, you know. Mason says there's a few people in the local ham club that would do only CW if they could get away with it. Yeah. Tron says my father was a ham, but when he died, I was not a ham, so I threw his radios away. It's a shame. Yeah. Sometimes you just don't know what to do, you know. Sam has 6932 upper sideband. Do I see something there? I don't see anything, but I got something on 6905. MXZ76, hopefully shortwave is just in a down period, but will come back up again. Due to the pandemic, sports card trading is through the roof, so hopefully shortwave will come as big as well. You know, shortwave is not going to die. I believe shortwave is still going to be there with some stuff to listen to in 50 years from now. It's just that, you know, it depends what happens, and who knows what's going to happen in the future, honestly. Kimberly says, poo-pooing is another subject. Go prunes. Oh, man. I don't poo at night. Oh, man. Really. WF7I Homebrew. Nice to have you here from Virginia. Happy Friday. Oh, God. Rufus Newt, my high school electronic teacher, was a ham. Spent an evening with him calling CQ. Another reason I am into shortwave. Impressed me. Is now a silent key VE3HPB. Oh, man. Hey, Vince. Salut. Bienvenue. Radio room in my new house is almost done. Slowly, I can be part of your wonderful show again. Cool. Hey, of the dawn. Nice to have you on board. Yeah, PSK31, when they do conversations, I love. Of the dawn loves prunes. Yeah. Take care, Matt. Some very interesting broadcasts on 6932 upper sideband. Sounds very familiar. Do I hear anything there? $69.32 upper sideband. What is happening? I hear my voice. Somebody is broadcasting me on 69.32 upper sideband. It's just funny. So I was on 6955 last Wednesday. Caesar, when does winter start in Canada? Is the reception better in shortwaves? Thank you. Each season has its own positive and negative on shortwave radio. And honestly, I like the summer evenings, because summer evening is cool, really a lot of fun. And it is full of signals, and night is full of signals. And the when we get into the fall and then into winter time, shorter days, I like the afternoon. The afternoon is often really, really cool, full of signals from a lot of parts of the world. In the summertime, 2 p.m., for example, or 1 p.m. local, is often an empty spot where there's not a lot to listen to. But with the shorter days and the angle of the sun, here, when we get to 2 p.m. in the afternoon on a winter day, usually there's a lot of stuff that comes in from, Africa and all the relays of the different stations. There's often a lot of good signals also coming in. Like, often the BBC will be better if they use certain frequencies. So there's a change, and you got to go through a full year of radio listening to understand and see how the different seasons actually affect radio propagation, honestly. Michael Woods, is there a list that will show all satellites that have amateur activity and their up and down links? Yeah, the best list that you can get for amateur satellites is one from a Japanese amateur operator, which is he's called Asahi, sorry, JE9PEL, and he's got a full, regularly updated list of amateur satellite activity. It updated at least once a week, and here's the website. Here, everything that has a yellow line is active. And you have the uplinks, the downlinks, and you have the modes that are used. You have the beacon frequencies. So there's a lot of stuff that you can listen to. This is probably the best place because it's very, very up to date on all the frequencies and what you can listen to. So check that out. And in about 2 weeks on Sunday, August 30th, something like that, we'll have a special VHF UHF live show talking about satellites, how to listen to satellites, and even when you're an amateur operator, understanding how to broadcast, because satellites have Doppler shift and all. It's you need to know all of that for sure. Shenghe can hear something on 6985 on the web SDR. Cool AM Radio says it's the Vault. Jeff Barrett says Joel the Pirate. Matambale 6932 upper sideband. Flying the Black Flag S8. Nick says I've only done it a few times, but FT8 call is fun. It's like PSK for chat. So FT8 has its own little thing here, and it's the fact that FT8 is amazing for DX, and you'll hear stuff in there that's like, wow. Last time that I did listen to 6 meters, FT8 was really, really cool because you could listen to all of these. So there's some slow scan TV now on 6932. There was some, I could hear stations from really far away in the United States. It's much easier, but for me, it's less fun because I don't have the feel of it. There's something about it I don't connect. Kamaxi76 says, this is really cool. The first time I've actually heard you on Shortwave. Yep. So, and it's not the first time that happens. Maybe, I don't know, 6th or 7th time that that I've been rebroadcast on by a pirate on HF. But it's always cool. I got to say, it's always cool. It's one of the things that you always kind of find fun. So, hey guys, we've been on for 3 hours and 11 minutes. I will say goodbye for tonight. Remember that next week I'm off, so there's no live shows next week. But we will be back the week after with probably 3 shows. So the week after next week, I'll be taking another week off. We will have our regular shows on Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, 0 UTC. Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, 20 UTC. And we'll have a special Sunday, August 30th, VHF UHF show, where we'll be concentrating and talking about satellites, amateur satellites, where to listen, how to listen, hopefully listening to some satellites here live, and hope that everybody's going to enjoy that. So thank you so much for being here. It's always cool to have everybody on board. Thanks to whoever rebroadcasts my shows on Shortwave. Have a great weekend. Have a great week next week, guys. And we'll be back in less than 2 weeks, because it'll be Wednesday, the first show. So a week and a half from now with another live Shortwave show. Thanks, everybody. Stay safe and enjoy your radios. Okay? Just enjoy your radios. And that's it. So take care, everybody. And going to ask about Halloween show. Any plans far ahead? There will probably be a Halloween show. I have no idea yet. We're still a little early, but There's probably going to be something, Kimberly. There's a good chance going to be something. Okay. Craig Peters, G5CWP. Nice to have everybody on board. Take care. So it's Saturday this year, so yeah, it's possible. It's possible. Take care, everybody. Stay safe. Love you all. And see you in just a week. Just in a week and a half. Bye-bye.